Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for watching this video named as Weekend Wisdom Series, and we are covering chapter-wise discussion on entire Bhagavad Gita. So in the last session, we had covered up to chapter 2, and the name of chapter 2 was Contents of Gita Summarized. When Arjuna had surrendered to Lord Krishna and he had accepted him as his guru. And then Lord Krishna started giving instructions to Arjuna. And the instructions started with the concept of soul, when Lord Krishna explained to Arjuna that we are not the body, we are spirit soul. And Lord Krishna talked about Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and then a little bit on Bhakti Yoga. And now we are entering into chapter 3. The name of chapter 3 is Karma Yoga. We target to finish this chapter 3 in three sessions, and we'll try to get more insights into the understanding of the philosophy of karma. So, as you know that when we look at chapter 2, it is called as Content of Gita Summarized. Lord Krishna had simply touched upon some of the different processes. He talked a little about karma, jnana, and bhakti, but he did not get into the details of them. And that basically brought a little confusion in the mind of Arjuna. And that's where Arjuna again raises question before Krishna, and now we will be discussing that question. So 3.1 and 3.2, these are the two questions. 3.1 and 2 covers the question part, and then 3.3 to 3.16 we will cover for today, and that will be getting into the flow of the answer of Lord Krishna, to Arjuna on the questions that were being raised by Arjuna. So let us recite first shloka. I'll try to give a high level overview, and I request all the people who are watching this video to please look at Bhagavad Gita, and then they can understand it in more details by their self reading. ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जलाशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। अर्जुन उवाच ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मणस्ते मता बुद्धिर्जनार्दन ततः कि कर्मणि घोरे मां नियोजसि केशव। So here Arjuna is telling that you are putting me in a very, I'm just trying to explain you in my words. Here Arjuna is telling you are putting me in a very difficult situation, and the instructions that we have provided so far in chapter 2, it is very confusing to me. At one side you are talking about renunciation, and on the other side you are talking about fighting in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So I'm getting confused with your equivocal instructions. So please suggest me what is beneficial for me so that I do not get confused and I follow the right footsteps. And then he said, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare? If you think that intelligence is better than fruitive work, my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. So he is clarifying his doubt from Krishna, and this is the art of gaining knowledge. In this, this is the process of gaining knowledge. Whenever we have doubt, in any subject, be it a material subject or a spiritual subject. We have to approach to the right authority and we have to inquire. If we have any question while we are studying an exam, then we reach to the teachers and we try to get the answer for those questions. Likewise, if we have any doubt on the path of spirituality, on the path of Krishna consciousness, then we must approach the authority and we must ask questions and seek a clarification that will help us to move ahead on the path of spirituality. Otherwise, we'll be confused, like Arjuna is confused. But Arjuna has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we do not take shelter of Supreme Personality of Godhead. We think that we will try to resolve this problem at our own level, but it does not happen in reality. We don't resolve the problem and we actually create more and more problem in understanding the depthness of the spiritual subject matters. So Arjuna is confused and he is seeking help from Lord Krishna. So Shloka 3, now Lord Krishna is replying to Arjuna. He is telling that I have already explained you in chapter 2, Shloka 2.39, that there are two classes of man. Two classes of man means one is who try to understand the path of spirituality through empirical philosophical speculation. And then the second class is those who try to understand me through devotional service. So two sections of the society is there. So let us understand it in more practical terms. So the idea is we have a religion and then we have philosophy. And we need to balance both of them together. We cannot be just fanatic of a religion and we cannot be just fanatic of philosophy all the time. We have to understand both the aspects. I'll give you an example. There's a statement in Bible that says God created this universe. Now this is a very high level overview that God has created a universe, this universe that we all live in. But it doesn't talk in detail about the subject. And if we get into Srimad Bhagavatam talks in more detail on this subject. That, okay, God has created this universe and then this universe is working under the direction of the Lord, how sky has come into existence, how air has come into the existence. All those descriptions have been provided in detail in Srimad Bhagavatam. So just knowing one aspect on a very superficial level that God has created this universe is not sufficient. We have to have a philosophical understanding of this subject, how God has created this universe. And this is called as the deeper science or understanding this knowledge on a higher platform. Now, moving on in Shloka 4 and 5. So in Shloka 4 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is talking to Arjuna about the subject of renunciation. Because Arjuna is confused and Arjuna wants to renounce. Now, renunciation is at times considered as a very cheap affair. Renunciation in Sanskrit, it is called as sannyas. And sannyas, this term has been, it's basically made from two words, sat and then nyas. So sat means the supreme and nyas means renunciation. So the one who renounces everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, he is a sannyasi. So he accepts the renounced order of life to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here we see that Arjuna is also interested to take a decision of renouncing his life. But that renunciation is a false renunciation, because he is not thinking that this renunciation is meant to satisfy Lord Krishna. And that, likewise, we see in society there are so many people who take sannyas in India. But taking sannyas just for the sake of neglecting your duties, or for the purpose of cheap adoration in the society by having saffron drops, it doesn't really satisfy the purpose of getting into sannyasa. That is why Lord Krishna is advising Arjuna not to take that step. It's going to be dangerous for him. Now, we need to understand one thing in life, that we have to do something. We cannot sit idle even for a moment. If we are sitting at any place and still our mind will keep on functioning, it will keep on thinking, it will keep on thinking something or other. And then there is a saying that empty mind is a devil's workshop. So Arjuna's idea of renunciation was like, creating a havoc in his life. So we have to do something in life. We cannot just remain ideal. And some sort of acceptance is needed to do something. If you just say, I'm going to renounce everything, I'll live in jungle, you have to do something there also. So some engagement has to be there. Simply rejection of the duties of this world, or the duties that we have in our family life, will not work for our upliftment or for our growth. It will not work. So that's what Krishna is telling to Arjuna, that you're not meant for sannyas. You are not really right fit for it. You're not prepared for it. You can be a sannyasi, but right now you're not a right fit for taking sannyas. Let's move on further. So, theme of Shloka 6 to Shloka 8. It is focused on the concept of the engagement of senses. So, as we know, we have senses through which we acquire knowledge. Like from eyes, you can see me. From ears, you can hear me. From your tongue, you can speak. These are the senses. And then there are sense objects. So when we say sense objects, when we go to the market, we see some nice sweet shop. And whenever we see a nice sweet shop, that shop or anything sweet lying at the sweet shop is an example of a sense object. Or if we see any beautiful house on our way, then it is a sense object. Or if we see a flower which has a nice fragrance, it is a sense object. So senses and then sense object. Now, in Shloka 6, the focus is that we cannot forcefully restrain our senses. We'll try to forcefully restrain our senses. Okay, we will not do this, we will not do this, we will not do this, we will simply close our eyes whenever we will see something bad going around. It will not work like that. Ultimately, some way or other, in our mind, those things will keep on going. Mind will keep on jumping onto those things. And when mind is jumping onto those things, that means we are cheating ourselves. We are a pretender. And that is what Shloka 6 is focusing about. Then what is the solution? What should be done? What is the alternate available to us? So we have senses. The best alternate available to us is to engage our mind and then utilize our senses by engaging our mind in devotion. So when we engage our mind in devotion, that means we act through the senses. and we perform different actions in this world. And those actions are being performed without attachment. Because the more we get attached to this world, the more we create problem in our life. So we have to perform our duty, but we don't have to get attached to the performance of duty. And now how we can practically do that? This is something I'll talk in the end, that we perform duty and don't get attached to the duty. It is natural that if you're performing something, if you're in constant touch with something for a period of time, you will naturally get affected by it. And how to get rid of that effect of attachment, we'll talk about it. So it's not a subject matter of duty, or you don't have a choice. You have to perform your duty. You don't have a choice to renounce your duties. You have to perform your duties. And another fact that Arjuna was being referred to, or Lord Krishna told to Arjuna, that you have to maintain your physical body also. Like we all have this physical body, and this physical body has some needs. Either we renounce everything if we are trained enough, but we know that we cannot do that immediately. So Lord Krishna is giving another, logical understanding or a logical reasoning, that you have to maintain your physical body. And in order to maintain your physical body, you have to perform your prescribed duties. If you do not perform your prescribed duties, how you will maintain the very body that has been given to you by the arrangement of Lord? So this is a high level overview of the theme covered in Shloka 6 to Shloka 8 of chapter 3. Now we are getting into Shloka 9. Okay, let me see what is there in Shloka 9. Okay, so Shloka 9. In Shloka 9, Lord Krishna is now using a very interesting word in that shloka. He's telling tad arthanam, tad artham. You have to work. You don't have choice of not working, but simply work for Krishna. Do not work for any other purpose in this world. The more you will work for any other purpose in this world, the more it will create bondage. The more you will create bondage for you, the more you will get stuck in this world. This is called the cycle of reactions. You get into reactions from one level to another level to another level to another level. And that is why we keep on, getting impacted by the reactions, in spite of the fact that we at times commit all good actions, but still the rippling effect of the reactions is so deep that it impacts our actions that we intend to perform even within this current life. And it becomes difficult for us to really reconcile what is happening with us. And then there's a term used here, Mukta Sangha Samavita. So you have to gain ultimately freedom from the action of the world. If you will not get freedom from the reaction of the work, then you will continuously be suffering in the cycle of birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. It's a continuous process. You are not going to be saved from this repetition of the cycle of birth and death. And that is why he's saying, work for me. And how do one work for Krishna? So this is a question. I'm parking it for now. This is something that I'm going to cover in the last. Let's move further. So we have covered Shloka 9 now. Then in Shloka 10, okay, the theme of Shloka 10 to 12 is focused on the concept of yagya, or you can say sacrifice. Now, we all know about yagya. We have this swaha, swaha. We all know about this yagya, but we unfortunately know only about this yagya. We don't know about other yagyas that we can perform. And the other yagyas are in fact more easier to be performed. So in Shloka 10 and 12, 10 to 12, the concept is that, you know, there is a sacrifice, and then, you know, there are different demigods who have been given in charge of, you know, different departments. Like there's Indra, right? There's Lord Brahma, then there's Lord Shiva, and they all have a different set of responsibilities to perform. Now, now we have an option that we satisfy them by performing our day-to-day actions through the process of sacrifice. So satisfying all the demigods and then definitely satisfying Krishna as well. That's one proposition that we have. Another proposition is that we satisfy Lord Krishna. We don't need to sacrifice. We don't need to satisfy others. Then once we start satisfying Krishna, then we don't need to satisfy others. Why we don't need to satisfy others? Let's take an example. Just like there's a tree. Within the tree, we don't put water into all the leaves of the tree. What do? We simply put water into the branches of the tree. Oh, sorry, the roots of the tree. And once we put the water onto the roots of the tree, we don't have to put separately water into all the leaves. We don't need to do that separately because we have given at the source, and that source is ultimately providing water to the entire parts of the tree. Likewise, if we do sacrifice for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna, then we don't have to do separate sacrifice for the demigods. Or we do not have separate set of obligations for the demigods because we have satisfied the very source of the demigods and the very source of all things that we utilize within this world. So, so there is a saying in this shloka 10 and 12, Yo bhumkate, one who enjoys, Sena evasa is a thief and he should be punished. So now the idea is that if we are simply busy in enjoying, because we all have been given different set of possessions, and if we are simply focused to enjoy it for ourselves, then it has repercussions. And sorry, and then saying that if we are doing so, then we are thief, and it is a duty of the government to make an arrangement and to punish a thief through police department, and that's what the police department does. So likewise, if we simply keep on possessing things, we do not use it for the satisfaction of Supreme Personality of Godhead, be it our body, be it the possessions that we all have. We all have to satisfy everything. We all have to engage everything in the service of Krishna. If we will not engage everything in the service of Krishna, then we are simply a thief. Now, this is a harsh statement, but reality is bitter, and let's accept the reality and move forward in the journey of life by not being remaining thief, whatever. Further. Okay, now let's move into the theme. So, what is 3.13 is saying? Let me quickly, recite this shloka. It's a very important and practical shloka that we'll just talk about soon. यज्ञशिष्टाशिना संतो मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषे भुञ्जते ते त्वघापापा ये पंचम्यात्म कारणात्. Okay, so now here the idea is that cooking is one of the most important business of our life. We cannot remain without cooking. We all have to eat. So meaning, I am quickly reading the meaning. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sin because they eat food which is first offered to sacrifice. Others who prepare food for self-enjoyment verily eat sin only. Now, it is an important thing for us to learn here that if you are simply eating food without sacrifice, and what is sacrifice? Sacrifice in simple terms is to offer the food to the Lordship. Sacrifice is not a very difficult thing. How to offer food to the Lordship? We make prasadam and then we put it as offering for the Lordship, and then we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. So when I was talking about sacrifice, in fact, this chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is one of the best sacrifice for this age of Kali. In the previous ages, there was a concept of sacrifice when people used to do, big yagyas. That was there in the previous ages. But now in this age of Kali, the process of sacrifice is very, very easy because this age of Kali is very, very difficult. And we cannot perform those sacrifice that people usually perform. So here the idea is that if we are not offering food before we eat that food, then we are simply committing sin. Because every food has some or other element of, some animals, some sort of plants, because plants also have life. So ultimately it's non-vegetarian because we are committing a sinful activity. And that is why Lord Krishna is telling that if you're not offering food to Lord Krishna while eating, before you eat, then you're committing a sin. And then say, the more sin you commit, the more you suffer. And then people say, why this thing happened to me? Because you did not take precautions as it was being mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So you yourself have created a problem for you. So let us not create more backlog for our future. Let us not create more and more problems for us for future. And let us try to live our life in line with the Vedic knowledge so that we do not commit more and more sinful activities. And now we are moving to theme 14 and 15 of Bhagavad Gita 3, chapter 3. So here the idea is, again, we all have some energy within us, and that energy has been given to us by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, if we use that energy for our own sense enjoyment, then what do? Then we are simply committing sin. However, if we use that energy for the service of Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we are actually, making a proper utilization of this energy. And then we will not have any repercussions of it. So we are now just about to finish in the next 5 minutes. So I was talking about this concept of engaging our mind or working on the platform of devotion, working without attachment to the results. That's also called as uh, uh, I'm missing that. Anyhow, so we are we need to work without attachment to the results. How can we do that? It's quite simple. We have to see what all we are engaged in our day-to-day life, and we have to at least make a commitment to ourselves that whatever we, let's say if we are into the job, and whatever we earn, then at least some portion of our earnings should be, you know, engaged in the service. That is called as donation. Yagya, dhyana, tapa, karma. So, so we have to, engage our results in the service of God. Let's say if we have a nice house, within the house we should have a nice temple, and we should invite devotees for performing some kirtana, so that our house is no more our house, it is a house of God. This is the purpose of the house, that we all have. It's not that we are the center of our house. It is the Lord who is the center of our house. Otherwise, it's not a family life, and it's not recommended in our Vedic knowledge or the Shastra to live that kind of life. Okay, so now Arjuna was being given, or Krishna is actually, telling the conclusion. If you do not follow this process of sacrificing, what is sacrifice? Sacrifice is very simple. Performance of Sankirtana Yagya is the best sacrifice. You don't have to do any other sacrifice. If you can do, Sankirtana, then there is no need of performing any other sacrifice. Okay, so what it is saying that, my dear Arjuna, one who doesn't follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice as established by the Vedas certainly leads a life full of sin, and his life is in vain. So Lord Krishna is telling that if you do not follow your life in line with performing the sacrifice, then your life is complete waste. Sam evi kevalam. No matter how much useless labor you might be doing, no matter how much financially you might be stable in your life, if you are not performing sacrifice of Sankirtan Yagya, then you are simply wasting life. You means we all. If I do not do it, I am also wasting my life. If anyone in this world is not performing sacrifice, Sankirtana Yagya, then he is wasting his life. With this, I would like to conclude our discussion for today. We have completed Shloka 3.1 to 3.16, and we will have two more sessions to cover chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, entitled as Karma Yoga. And one more remark just before I close. So living entities are dependent on grains. Grains cannot be manufactured in any factory of this world. The raw material is always required from the arrangement of nature. And this says grains are produced by rainfall. Whenever there is a rain, then we get sufficient amount of grain. And rain is possible only through sacrifice. So you see the cycle. Rain is possible through sacrifice, and the processes of sacrifice is already given in our Vedic scriptures. So every age has its own process of sacrifice, and Kali Yuga is having its own process of sacrifice. And the easiest process of sacrifice for this age of Kali is Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam eva kevalam kalo nastiv 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 gatir anyatha. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So we'll meet in our next session on Weekend Wisdom series. And if you have any question, and you are most welcome to reach out to myself. I request you to please subscribe to this channel or share it with others so that everyone is benefited with this divine message of Bhagavad Gita, and we can create a peaceful society of people around us. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,